how can we ensure that we set up a team that is not CSAT focused, that is not 5-star oriented, the granular thing that we put in place? This is what clients want. It breaks down to the resourcing. Hi, my name is Martin Oluwatosin. So we're talking about the practical aspect of operation delivery, because I don't want to be like somebody that just come to online and talk theory. Last time I talked about how a team lead, either you're a team lead, operation managers or program managers, how you can be successful. We touched base about my experience over 7 years, leading in that complex environment. And I tell people, I've led a lot of projects. It's a privilege to say that I've been successful in those projects, and I'm sharing my experience. The Martin that you know some years ago is not the same Martin, in terms of exposure and experience. And the first thing is the client expectation. For any team lead, ops, program managers, especially in a very dynamic delivery environment, you need to have a clear understanding of the client expectation. I also shared about the concept of setting up an auxiliary team when I was leading a project in Global English, just because I want a competition to drive CSAT, and I also want to be able to meet up unstable volume expectations. Then I also talk about the concept of starting pay per incident model, so that I can have control over the cost per incident. And that is other aspect I'm going to talk about today. There are some ground level work done that has to do with resourcing, which I would say that kudos to the client. I was able to have control over the resourcing. Then I was able to democratize the resourcing concept, because I'm just an operation manager, right? I have a team lead, then I have POCs, I have engineers, right? I can't just be resourcing for them, but I have to set up the strategy of the kind of profiles we want, the kind of people we want, what kind of people I prefer to have in the team over others. And then I set up the ownership mindset with the team leads that, hey, you're going to come there and select who you want based on the principle and the culture and tradition I've set up, right? So that tomorrow you don't come back and tell me that, hey, Martin, you gave me a resource that is not useful for me. On this episode, let's talk about the granular thing that we put in place. This is what clients want. And I'm just going to talk about that environment where clients want something else, how I did it differently. But let's finish this part of the client saying that I want CSAT. I want you guys to be able to meet up with the volume demands, and then I want you to get it done with a minimal cost control. It breaks down to the resourcing. I remember I told myself then that I needed to get people that can drive great quality support for customers. Then I needed to get people that are readily available, that can compete with the people that I have on board. So have a team A, then have a team B. The team B, I call them the firefighters, their backup team. The team A, they are the ones that are readily available on ground with full-time contract. But I ensure that in team A and team B, the resourcing that was done is of quality. How? What drives CSAT? A lot of people and that's why today in most support delivery, there is still people gaming the system, because we are putting pressure on engineers to focus only on the output. CSAT or HSAT, it's an output. There's a lot of things that builds down to this. One thing I used to do is that I try to let my team forget this and focus on what built up to this. So let's go to today's episode. So what we want to talk about today is simple, is that how can we ensure that we set up a team that is not CSAT focused, that is not 5-star oriented? How can we set up a team that they don't know anything about what is this, they don't care about this. But what they should know is that what built up to this, and what built up to SSAT, customer satisfaction, CSAT or HSAT, is initial response. Meeting what? The SLA. What are the SLA? If phone modality 10 minutes, email modality 30 minutes. In my team then, right? If phone case is coming, ask anybody. If you've once been under my team as a team lead or operation manager, please comment. I tell people, phone modality is 10, you have to respond to customer in 5 minutes. Email modality is 30 minutes, you have to respond to customer in 15 minutes. So the worst that can happen is that the standard SLA is 30 minutes for email modality. The standard SLA for full modality is 10 minutes. I put my team in 5 minutes. The worst that can happen is that they will never miss the standard SLA. But I don't let them have the mindset that you will never miss the standard SLA. You have to get it done in 5 minutes for full modality. How do we set up a team in consumer in line of business? People think consumer line of business is very easy. That is the most difficult line of business. How do we set up a team that is delivering 4.8 back to back? We were delivering 4.8 back to back when other competitors were delivering 4.1 and they were celebrating. Imagine when you have overcome 4.1 1 year ago, and I remember the first time a competition, I'm not going to mention their names, and they got to 4.1, they were happy. We're already in 4.8. In global English, they were delivering 178 SAT. In 2 months, right, we're delivering 193 SAT. A lot of these teams are still alive. They can comment. And before I left global English, the worst we did is 191. But the concept is, I never for once make my team to have focus on this. The question they should focus on is that, how do I ensure that this team sent the initial response within agreed SLA, standard SLA? How do I ensure that my team, they are doing proper quality scoping, isolating problems? Because the moment you are jumping to resolving case and you're going back and forth, you already ruined the customer experience. The moment customer reads a ticket in 1 minute and you pick up the ticket in 1 minute, is a wow of experience. I once have a customer say, wow, this is the first time I've seen somebody from Microsoft picking up tickets within 2 minutes. We always have a chat modality. I tell my team, within 1 minute you have to respond to customer. But how do you make your engineers to be able to meet up with the SLA? Because engineers don't have control over this. If engineers are having like 20 tickets at the same time, how do you want them to meet up with the SLA? And that's where the operation managers comes in. Here, you have to ensure that if the resources that you expected to have is 20 in a day, right? Ensure that you have 30 in a day. You always ensure that you have 50% buffer. Any delivery organization that doesn't have control over its resourcing has killed its delivery. Especially in an organization where the volume allocation is not stable. If the volume allocation is not stable, the inflow of resources have to be increased and the retention has to be what? High. Any organization in a freelance space that it doesn't care about the retention and it could not provide a high influx of resources, quality resources, is doomed. Because there's no way the team will never be able to meet up with the SLA. They will be what? Overwhelmed. And this is one of the situations I find myself in also one of the projects. The client doesn't care about the retention. They don't care about employee feedback. We don't care about who stays, who goes. But it's okay if that's what the new culture of the client is. You don't care about that and you don't have a readily available resource to replace that. That is the problem of the client that makes them to drop the ball in CSAT and SAT. The quality drops because we could not easily replace the quality people. And if we're not struggling to get people, the thing is that when it comes to delivery, right, if you cannot care about the retentions, you shouldn't care about the regions where you recruit from. There are some regions that they're highly costly. You don't have control. But there are some regions that they are not costly, but the readily available resource is there. So we're going to go there next time. As a team lead and operation lead, you have to care about the initial response that has impact on the SLA. This is what is in the control of the operation managers, because it's not in the control. IR or meeting SLA is not the control of the engineers. If the engineers is swamped with cases, how do they want to meet up the SLA? So operation managers, you have to ensure that you have 50% buffer in a way that if each engineer is meant to be having 5 cases per day, let them struggle to have 3 cases per day. Let them be hungry. Create an hunger within the operations. There's no way when the hunger is within the operations, they meet SLA. In that case, if they are not meeting SLA, the team leads should be held responsible for it because you were able to create the resources. And the team leads have the resources to meet up with the volume demands. From there, quality of scoping. I used to tell my team, I don't want back and forth. Take your time on the first call to understand the customer issue. That is your job on the first call. Isolate the problem. Where is it happening? Is it happening on the Mac? Is it happening on the Windows? Where is it happening? Then you have to document. I've once let go of an engineer for wrong documentation. Honestly, the engineer is an MVP now. I don't care. I don't know how these guys get MVP nowadays, but how will you be an MVP that you don't care about customer? Scoping, poor. Quality, case documentation, poor. I say, hey, mate, let's talk. I'm going to tell you why I let you go. Let's talk. I can't take this. And that's the culture, the discipline that you have to set in place in your team. Then the last thing is that when they document, make a team that research plus collaborate. Then this is what leads to what? Resolution. You document the problems. Why do you need to document the problem? God forbid, tomorrow you might be sick. You might have an emergency. Customer must not suffer. Case resolution must continue. Customer wants a call back in the region where you are out of shift. And you don't need to be there. But you document the case well. People say this, Martin, is not easy. Come on. Some people just feel like I take up some things just because of money. No. I've been privileged and God has blessed me to a point that I make some intentional thing just because I also want to refresh my knowledge. Because how do I teach about this when I myself, I don't pick cases? I've never picked cases. I picked cases 4 years of my life. And even as an principal operationalist, global operationalist, I'm still picking cases. Sometimes I pick 1, 2 cases. I talk to customer. Some operation managers have never talked to customers in 5 years, and you're putting pressure on team leads. How do you want to feel how they are feeling? Some team lead operationalists have never even used the tracker that the engineers are using to even feel the quality of the trackers. And you put pressure on them. You don't do this well, you don't do this well. How would you recruit somebody in a highly dynamic delivery environment that have no clue about the basis? And there's no clue or plan to have a compact readiness that can actually help new person to have the ground running. So I always ensure that I set up team that understand this basis, because I understand that if you scope well, you document well, and I enforce that people research. If you research, you come to the team, you ask questions. It's a must, because I'm the one asking question in the team today. It might be you that needs help tomorrow. So that culture of people see that Martin asks a question in the group, you see all my team trying to provide answers. And before then, you are getting help. You say, can I help you? Can I jump on the call with you? People care, because what we really care about is what? The team. So the culture of you building up a team and let people know that who I care about is the team. I'd rather get somebody that's an average technical guy, committed, with the will, with the hunger, with the collaborative mindset, over somebody that's highly technical, non-collaborative. I will not want to have such a person in my team. That is how we're able to actually change the narrative in global English. You can put this into action and let me know the outcome.